diplomatic points go as follows. We need to put 3 into Russia. That's most important because we know the Allies can put 3 into Russia. Now, if the Allies choose to pick Russia, then they can't use any covert they have, so I have 3, they have 3. If you look in the Russian modifier books, the Russians will get another 1 to their side because they have 25 BRPs over 100, but I'm going to get 1 because the Russians went into the Baltic states, so that evens out. I have nothing to worry about there as long as we leave it alone. The only thing that will happen is a reaction die roll. The reaction die roll happens if we decide to get the Hungarian, Bulgaria, or Romanians on our side before I declare war, and I'm not going to do that. That's imperative. You wait until the turn you're going to declare war before you try to diplomatically get the Balkan countries on your side. So as long as we don't do that, we only need 3 in there. Now, I put 1 in Romania just because the Russians can put up to 2 in there, and mine is doubled. And plus I get a lot of modifiers, especially with the Russians trying to subvert it. And in Egypt, I put 3. Because if the Allies have 2 covert operations there, they can take 2 of them out. That would leave me with 1 DP in the country. I'm going for Yugoslavia this turn, and again, I put 3 there in case the Allies want to put 2, or have 2 covert against me. So they can take 2 away, but they can't take that 3rd one. What's important with that is if they have 2 covert, the coverts get rid of the DPs. And if you have no DPs left in the country, you can't pick it. So you can't even make a roll. So you got to make sure you have more there than he can eliminate. Now it says here, the Russian DPs may be placed in this country. Well, if you look at Yugoslavia, it has the asterisks, and that's what the asterisk means. Well, Russians can't place DP in any country, if you read the rules in the Third Reich, unless it has a supplied hex adjacent to that country. Well, Russia doesn't have anything supplied to Yugoslavia, so they can't put anything in it. So we don't have to worry about the Russians. So that is our DPs, and I'm not going to try to get any Balkan country yet because it'll hurt us on the Russian modification reaction table, so we don't want to do that. And we picked Egypt. So in Egypt, we put 3. And remember, we always put 3 because we know the most covert operations that the Allies can get on us is 2. And if he uses them, he can take 2 of those away. And if you only put 2 diplomatic points here and the covert operations takes 2 away, they eliminate your DPs, and if you have no DPs in that country, you can't even roll for it. So you always go 3. And let's see what the Allies put. The Allies put 1. So how many covert operations do the British want to use? Now the British have a couple concerns. They know they're getting hit here in Egypt. They had to take their troops off for Ethiopia. The other importance is Iraq. So do they want to use 2 covert operations here or just 1? And I think, I already know the Germans, remember they already did some DPs. They had 1 in Romania, they had 1 in Hungary, that's 2. You know they had to put some in Russia. So I'm guessing the Germans, that's about 5 or 6 gone, so that you know they still have like 6 DPs somewhere not being used. So I'm going to think about this a minute and look at the Egyptian table and see how many covert I want to use as the British. After looking at the Egyptians, the Germans are going to have a +6 already if I don't use covert. So either I put 2 in there and only give them a +4, because they need to get over an 8 to get 3, but they only need 7 to build 2 partisans. But 2 through 6, they don't get the partisans. Now the partisans are going to give me trouble back here in the line. They're only 1-3s, but that's tough. If I waste my covert and not worry about Iraq, he gets an Iraqi army here, like a 1-4 aircraft and 5 1-3s. But they're over here, and there's not, you know, they can cut off the Persian Lend-Lease and stuff. I think right here is my important issue. And I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 covert operations in Egypt. So, with the 2 covert operations spent, it knocks the 3 DPs, it knocks 2 of them out. So he only has 1 DP now, and I have 1 DP, so they're canceled. So that cancels each other out on the modifiers. He can still roll because he was left with 1. So far you get +2 for the Axis armor or infantry in Egypt, which the Italians are in there. And then remember, the Germans got Muslim on the rest. So he gets a +4 to his dice roll for Egypt. Let's see what he gets.
The die roll is a 3 plus the 4 is a 7. And on a 7 it says here that I can build 1 partisan. The partisan, it can stop the reinforcements and the supply to the British if I get it in the Suez port. However, it cannot damage the canal. So we get that, and we get to build it in unit construction phase.
The partisans aren't a whole lot of trouble for me, even though they may be for the British. So I'm glad the British spent 2 covert on Egypt. Now both their covert are gone. I know they don't have any for the rest of the year. So next turn when I pick Yugoslavia, I know the Allies can't do anything about it, and I know the Russians can't because the Russians aren't able to put DPs into Yugoslavia. So you kind of play around with the DPs like that, you know, picking a country that you want them to waste covert on first. And that's it for the Axis. Allies on their diplomatic, Britain and the US, they decided to put 1 in Egypt and 1 in Iraq. Those are just to defend it. You have to have 1 DP in the country if you want to use covert operations there. So we put 1 there because those are most important to us. And we put 3 into Russia because Russia can only put 2, so we want more than that. So the Allies put 3, and you can't combine the Russians and the Allies. So there's 3 there to defend against it. The Russians take their 2 and put it in Ukraine. Remember, they can only put half into one certain category, so they have 4. So 2 go into Ukraine. They want to try to protect that, and 2 go into Romania just to see if they can make it difficult. You can either go Romania or Finland for the Russians, whatever you think. They pick nothing for the diplomatic phase of spring 1941. We're not going to pick it. It's all defensive purposes. So the diplomatic phase is done. Let's do this turn. So if you look, we start at turn 25 right there. So you get 2 for the turn. That's 25 and 26. 25 is green. What did 25 say? The U.S. may allocate 2 DPs next year start sequence, and that's fine. As long as I stopped them in 1941 from getting that, and I did. I stopped 1 turn earlier. So there's 2 for the turn for 26. 27, the offensive that the Germans chose in the West. They're going to bomb. That's another ding on the attention table. When they do the strategic warfare, that's another ding they're going to do on the table. Now, the only one I might be adding here is the Italian offensive option in the Mediterranean, but I need to look and see if there's anything I can really do to the British if I take an offensive compared to just taking an attrition. So let me take a look. At the Italians, taking an offensive will give me 1 British hex here, but I could get the British hex maybe by our attrition, and if I don't, I guess it's not that critical. It'll save me moving that U.S. Axis tension table up 1. So I think the Italians are going to take an attrition down here too. So are the Germans. I'm not even going to try to supply that air unit right now because the Italians can't really counterattack much, especially when I spring the Ethiopia thing on them at the end of my turn. So attrition for both countries down in the Med. And I'm just going to move some things around and get done with the movement, and I'll show you what the board looks like. Movement's done. You can see I moved, what you do is you move a lot of Germans out of the Prussian area because you can just build right there and you don't have to waste time SRing. So I shift them down. We're going to have to SR into these gaps, get as much troops down here as we can. Over there, just did some shift. We want to get our beaches covered, and all the airplanes are going into attack. and down here we just moved around for an attrition. So that's really about it. I'll make the die rolls and the attacks, and we'll tell you what happened after. So the attack, we rolled a 1 for the attrition here, which was great. Killed 2 units. They just took off the replacement and the 1-3 they had back here. And we picked this hex right here. So the British backed up to there, and we cut off this Australian core. So that's it there. Now up here we did our bombing of Britain. Now the British lost less planes. They done better in the battles. So here's what the British lost this turn. 2 aircraft, a 1-3, and these are the 2 pieces they lost down the attrition. The Germans lost 4 aircraft. Not a big deal. Anyways, 10 planes got through and bombed Britain. So at 115 they lose 10 BRPs for the bombing. They're down to 105. Okay, so the Axis are going to build. Now remember, every turn and year, especially to check the force pull additions, the Italians got to add another fleet and 5 Army air factors. So that's what they have there. Nobody else on the British, Germans, Italians added anything so far. So I'll come back when the Germans, Italians are done SRing and constructors. Bought every ground unit they had, plus they can rebuild 2 damaged ships. So that's why these ships are always on the side. There's 7 left, and I still have a brand new fleet I can build, but I just built 2. We did succeed at getting Egypt, so we're really hammering Britain every chance we get. The partisan, I usually like to go here so he can't be SRing stuff through the Suez Canal. Part of my plan will be to occupy the hex adjacent to Alexandria, adjacent to Port Said, so he can't get SRs in here. And then we do have the units that exited the board for Ethiopia down here, so I think I'm going to put the partisan down here, and that's where the partisan will go. So we're left with 155 BRPs for the Germans. That's a lot. They're already almost down to half in just one turn. But as far as the Italians, they built the plane and the ship, and they're right there inverted. Germans, they put all the infantry they built right here on Prussia so they can walk to the front easy. The tanks were just put in Germany because they have a 6 movement. They're going to reach the front no problem. I brought the paratrooper over. I moved a couple Germans, SR'd them here. And then I SR'd all the airplanes that were in France bombing Britain to this side. So we're all ready here for the assault. And I'm going to change one SR. I moved a replacement up to the front for the defense here, but I'm going to SR an air base. We need air bases always on the front line here. Critical. So I'll put the air base up on the front line. And then next turn you're allowed to pick up an air base and move it. So out of the 4 air bases I have, at least I'll have 3 of them on that Russian front already. And we'll get the other one over there later. So that's it for the Axis turn. It is now the Allies' turn. The Axis pulled the Ethiopian research on them. So what the British have to do is they have to get 6 factors of ground and air unit off the edge of the board right here, like they're going down to Ethiopia. So 6 factors have to get removed from the board. If they don't do it, they incur a 5 BRP loss, which doesn't hurt them too bad. The Americans are sending them 10 BRPs every turn. But more importantly, Suez ceases to be an Allied supply source. So now they're going to be hurt with, they'll have the same restrictions as the Italians. They have to start supplying their air units and their tanks if they want to use them and to fly out. So that puts a real burden on them, and that we can't have. So the British will now have to comply with the Ethiopian revolt. The only good thing they have is the Germans have stopped bombing Britain because they moved to the Russian front. So there's a relief up here finally, and they'll be able to start shifting more units down to the Mediterranean. So that's what they'll be working on right now. So it's the British turn and the Americans, but the Americans don't have anything to do. The British job this whole year is to hold on and not lose Egypt. But you know, I have to get 6 ground or air factors off the board. So we're going to attrition here. We're not going to spend any money. And then I'm going to try to SR everything I can down here. Now remember, last turn I sent a unit to the South African box, because they're coming around this way and then they're moving up into Egypt. So I get that. That's coming in along with the ship. But remember, the Germans really hurt us last turn and took away 3 SRs. So I only have 6 SRs this turn. So and then we're going to fight the gauntlet. We're going to bring troops along this route during the SR phase and see if the Italians choose to stop us. So I'll come back after the attrition phase right here and let you know what happened. I got to move some troops around. British rolled a 1 on their attrition table on the 11 to 20 table. That's 2 counters and a hex. Now we don't want to lose this Italian 3-3. So what you do is you eliminate this. Now the British can't pick this hex to be chosen. They can pick this one, and then we'll end up backing that one up to there. So there's 1 unit we have to destroy, and then we have to destroy a 2nd unit. We'll just take off another 1-3 back here. So there's 2 Italian, the first Italian death of 2 corps right there. So that's it. The British get to pick 1 hex, and they will. They want to knock this back. They pick it, and they advance that 3-4 into it. So the British, in 1 attrition move, gets their line back again. And now it's their unit construction. This is what we construct. It's only 20 BRPs. There's 9 there. 8 there is 17. 18, it's only 19 BRPs. And remember, we can't go too far too fast. We want to save money in case we want to do an offensive in the Eastern Front. And that's everything but 1 tank and the paratrooper, but paratrooper's not really needed yet. And then I'd like to get the 5-4 aircraft on the board as soon as possible. But let's start with that. So we go down 19. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This goes to there. That goes to there. So 105 goes down to 86. And that's how many BRPs the British have left right now. Okay? The 2, remember, they can build 3 factors worth of stuff in Egypt, and they put a replacement back and the 1-3 back. It's easy for them. They lose it, they put it back. The tank, they're going to try to SR out of England. The 2 planes go right here. Now, the Germans have 9 ships there. The British have 9, 10, 11, 12, 9. They have 12 right here that we can SR from. We can intercept with another 5. Remember, our aircraft were in the Battle of Britain, so they're out of action this turn. Even the aircraft we bought, they're all spent. The Germans can try to stop this tank from coming down, which is what they're probably going to do. That's why I keep building up the German ships, try to get in a battle. So we're going to try to SR this tank, and we take off this way, and the Germans say they're going to intercept. So they come out with their 9. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 hexes away. They're going to intercept that. Then the British say we will counter-intercept. If it's any they can intercept as soon as they leave this water hex. So let's see if it's any closer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's still 8, but it's 4 for this force. So this is where the battle will take place right there. There's no aircraft involved. That's why the Germans are going to do it. So first we see if the counter interception of the British 5 ships hit the Germans. So the Advanced Third Reich says 0 to 4 range on the advanced third right table is automatic. So that is automatic. But the Germans are 8 away. Anywhere from 5 to 10, they have to roll a 1 through a 5. So let's see what they... So here's the Germans roll. And they got a 4, so they succeed. So first, let's conduct a naval battle with 9 on the British 5. We take any modifiers into account. Fleet nationality of the fleets. Germany's a 1, the Britain's a 2. So the Germans get to add 1, the British have to minus 1. And here goes, the Germans will roll first. They're on the 9 table here. They get to add 1 to their dice. They just rolled a 12, which becomes a 13, which is 2 ships eliminated, 4 boarded. Now the British counter, and they roll a 6, is down to a 5, and they only have 5 ships. They're on this table. And 1 eliminated. So 2 British eliminated, 1 German. So 1 German back in the dead pool. 2 British back in the dead pool, and these ships go home. So we succeeded in knocking it down to an 8 against a 12, but the British are carrying out an activity here, so they'll be minus another 1. So here is the Germans roll at the 8 table. 4 becomes a 5, and they're still on the same table with 8. So 1 ship is destroyed, 1 aborted. The British gets an 11, minus 2 is a 9. But they have 12 ships, so they're up here, so it's 2 Germans eliminated, 3 aborted. So the British got to do 1 and 1, the Germans 2 and 3. So you have to add another 1 to the dead pool, so we'll make this a 3. And only 1 has to go back home here. So 1 returns home, and 1 stays out there. Now the Germans have to lose 2. So 2, they need 4 in the dead pile. I believe it was 4 aborted. Yes, it was 2, 4. So 4 have to be aborted. Remember, there was 8. 2 just died. There's 1 left. Okay. Now 4 of those have to go home. So there's 2 German ships left. Now the Germans, there's a fleet staying power. The British, Americans, and Germans can all stay for 2 rounds. So if they want to stay another round, they can. But they got 2 fleets left. They're not staying. They're going home with their boarded ships. They tried. Remember, you're just knocking the British down and making them lose ships, and they did. So these ships succeed in moving this tank to the Gibraltar. So those are sea escort. They don't count against your SR limit. Now they're here. Now these ships are going to SR this tank into Egypt. We are going to SR that tank across the Mediterranean into Egypt. We are going to move it as far away possible from the Italian ships. So we're going to move it out along the coast. So it goes like this. And the British air in Malta is going to provide air cover. You state that. So it comes around here. And right at this point is this Italian plane is in range to hit those ships. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can't reach it here, so it reaches it there. It can fly out and attack it. As it does, this is providing air cover, so it comes out and intercepts that plane, and you go for an air battle. And it's a +2 because the die roll modifier for the Italians is -2, so they go down to 0. They stay at a 3. So the Italians lose their plane. and the British lose none. But it flies home, it's spent. So it did its job for the air cover, and as it continues on its path, the Italians say stop right there, because that's the closest distance in interception range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right there. The Italians say, I'm going to come out and intercept it. Now, as they do that, the British say, I'm going to come out with my 5 subs and hit you. And they can even come out with this 9 ship from this side to try to hit the Italians. But they're going to take their chance with the battle here. Even though the Italians are using a lot of ships, yeah, the British better come out. They're going to come out with this too and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They're going to travel 15. The subs intercept automatically. We have to roll for that British ship at 15 range on the naval interception table. And right here, 11 through 15, I have to get anything but a 5 or a 6. Here we go. And a 4. It succeeds. The subs will hit with this at a counter interception. So we go into a naval battle. We have 5 and 9 is 14. Let's roll the British, see what they get. Oh my gosh, they rolled snake eyes. What's their die rolls nationality? They're a 2. The Italians are a 4. So the British get to add 2 to that, so it becomes a 4. So on this table, it's 1 ship sunk, 3 aborted. Okay, so 1 is going to get sunk, and 3 are going to go home. But before we do that, let's roll the Italians. The Italians have 18, 19, 20, 26. The Italians have 27. And they have to minus 2 off their dice. And they get 5 minus 2 is 3. And that's 2, 3. So in terms of losses, it was 14. It was a 1, 3 and a 2, 3. It looks like. So the Italians actually win this battle. So 1 Italian fleet is eliminated, and 3 are aborted. So we take this Italian 6. We take the Italian 6 and we turn it into 6 different factors, because 3 are aborted. So we'll just send this 3 home. And this is what has survived, and the Italians actually won the battle. The British, now they have to do their losses evenly, but there's only 1 ship lost. They're going to go ahead and take a sub off. So they get 1 sub back. So 1 sub is dead. And then they have to abort 3 ships. So they will go 2 from the subs and 1 from the British. So the British are going to send 1 home. British, out of that 9 they had, they'll go ahead and abort 1. It goes back to Egypt. They have an 8 left. The subs have to abort 2. So they have 4 here, so 2 are left, 2 go home. So that's what we have left. Now unfortunately, the British, remember they have staying power. They can fight a second battle. Since they lost, they choose to fight another one. Let's do it again. The Italians will shoot at 18, 19, 20 at the 23 table. They have to minus 2 off their dice. So 6 minus 2 is 4. The 23 table, they're right here. They got a 2, 3 again. So it's 2, 3. The British on the 10 table roll an 8. And they get 2 more, which is a 10 on the 10 table. And it's a 2, 4. They come up with 1 more than the Italians and they beat them. So they lose 2. The 4 don't matter. about it boarding, because the 4 don't matter about it boarding, because the whole fleet was just defeated. It's sent home. Remember, the British lose 2, so they lose another sub. These ships now continue with their SR, no more stopping it, and they succeed in getting a tank into Egypt. These don't count toward SRs. So far for SRs, there's been 1 tank. We're going to SR this. Both these units are SRing together. One's providing sea escort, but they're SRing together, and they come into Egypt. There's another tank in there, and I brought another 9 ship in, because just for this reason, if we can succeed in those interceptions, I want more power hitting them. This side SRs, this side helps intercept with the subs and any planes we get on Malta. If we get planes on Malta, they can't be counter-air. They can decline counter-air combat. And when I choose to come out and fight, I choose to come out and fight. So I've got British planes I will be bringing down here. But for now, we brought 2 tanks in. Now remember, I got to get 6 units down here. One of them is going to be the tank. So there's a tank. We're going to put it right there. That's in Ethiopia. The other tank, I need to protect Egypt. But I still got to get 2 more units there. And I'm just going to have to send this aircraft right now. I can't afford to take these men off here. We're going to send the aircraft down. So there it is. Now these 6 factors have to remain in Ethiopia for 1 complete game turn. So this game turn doesn't even count. They're off the board. They have to remain there the entire next game turn. Okay, so that's how the British took care of that. You can see a lot of fighting went on in here. Okay, a lot of fighting between ships. We're just trying to hamper the British everywhere we can. So that's the end of the British turn. Is the Russian front. Now the Russians, you have like 8 turns to get your stuff set up and your troops on the board. Spring 1941, you should have your stuff ready to go. You'll know if the Germans are ready to hit you or not. Usually it's in the summer of 1941. And you'll see here, we have a front row of 1-3 starting from there all the way down. Now we're allowed to set up out here, but we backed up because it saves us actually a unit, and that unit's desperately needed. So we cover the front row. The beach is covered because the Germans have people on ports here, and they can just move their ships, pick up a troop, and come there. We keep 1, 2, 3 on the fortress there at Leningrad, because that should be enough to hold that down. The 2-1-3s are on the Finnish border, so they can't just walk in. The second line is all the powerful infantry. 3-3s at the north, all the way to 2-3s. Now here's where we run short. We don't have enough troops. You can try to pull it off the Finnish front, and you can let the Finns walk up to here. I don't like doing that. That's why I start a tank right there, and I put 3 tanks, one on Kiev, and then right down the road to back up those infantry, and 3 more are in the north. I put a plane here to support the second row and the tanks. This plane supports these tanks in the middle. The 5 supports the tanks and the important north area. This 5 supports the tanks in the important north area. This 1 plane supports Leningrad and the beach and the tanks here in the north. So that is the best Russian setup that we could do. And so I'm just showing you, there it is. The Russians are ready for the German onslaught. Now the Germans chose not to diplomatically change any Balkan country, otherwise they'd give us a huge modifier, and we can possibly change the Russian modification table. Because every country that they try to change, we're going to get a modifier in our favor. Plus there's a general overall modifier if he tried to change any of them. So with the 3 the Allies put in, with those modifiers, that could easily be 3 more. That's 6, maybe even 7 to whatever the Germans put in. The Germans could put up to 6 in the Russian front. So now, you know me, I don't put any in, so I don't want to do anything. Remember, the Russian reaction modification die roll does not take place until the allied player turn. Well, next turn we're going to get all these on our side that we possibly can, and then we declare war on Russia. So we're already at war, and then when the Allies' turn comes, then it doesn't matter about the reaction modification table. So that's why I wait to the summer when I'm ready to attack. And that is the Russian turn. So for the Japanese, what we do this in 1941 is we spend the first 3 turns getting ready for our invasions. And no matter how the Allies set up, there's 95 BRPs to be taken down here in the Pacific, all in this area. The easiest ones to know what to do would be the Dutch East Indies, because they got to start a 1-2 corps there, a 1-2 corps there, and a 1-2 corps there. And then they have a 1-3 plane and 2 ships that they can start on any one of those cities. But no matter where they put them, they're probably going to come out and try to cause some interceptions and stuff, and we need to destroy them. But basically, there's all 1-2s here that you need to evade, take out. Malaysia, you're not sure how they're going to set up. Burma, you're not sure how the Indians are going to set up. The Philippines, you're not sure how they're going to set up. Hong Kong, you know, has one there. Australia has to be on the Pacific front, so they have to start so many troops here in Australia. That's why they're there and there, but the rest of the Australians have to be on the Pacific front, you can see here. So they have to be out there. So basically, first thing I did was I turned in, made 2 task forces out of all the carriers. So the carriers are set in 2 task forces. And what I like to do is, now this is another thing I came up with. The 2 task forces are underneath this. In the normal game, you just have this card, and the card is kept like down here underneath your table. And you're always moving things around, and you're allowed to put your planes in spots, but you never know what the guy's moving. And I'm sitting here playing this guy, and the guy always seems to have his planes in the right spot, no matter what. I mean, he does things 5 times in a row because I'm hammering him with the Americans, and he's protecting himself. Then all of a sudden, when he gets a good search modifier, all of a sudden, all his planes are on attack. Now, how does that happen? It's just, so I like to keep the card up on top with little covers on them. This is Task Force 2, Task Force 1, they're numbered. And that way, when he assigns his planes, they're going to go behind different other cards. And that way, you know, if he's sticking his hands in here, he can't take the ships out of here and move them into this task force and back and forth and move where he signed the planes. If he signed his planes to cap, they're going to be in a different box. Strikes, they're going to be in a different box. So everything's above the table where you can see the guy moving. Anyways, the 2 task forces are made right there. This is how we started the Pacific. Remember, I didn't know how we set it up. I changed it. The 1-2 is on Marcus. There's a 1-2 on Truck. And the air base is there, obviously. Remember, we took, in the winter of 1940, we took Indochina. And we're basically getting ready for our invasion. So, it's the Japanese turn. And we took an offensive last turn, remember, and we attacked this hex with everything we had. The attacks didn't come out too well. I wanted a hex here also, but that's the way it went. So we're going to try something else now. Let's see what Japanese are going to decide what they're going to do. So the Japanese are going to choose an attrition option on the Asian front, and we're just going to get set up for invasions, and we're going to start moving things to their embarkation points. Remember, you can only set up 2 units in a port, so we'll be using all these ports along the way to put our troops in. that we will be picking up and using. So that's it for the movie. You see I've cleaned out China a little bit. We're going to have this one tank that's stuck in Manchukuo, zone of control here. I'll keep one tank here, zone of control this whole area. All the rest of the tanks, the other two tank, and I'm going to buy a 1-3 there. They're going. And I got an SR troop right there. That's the only spot I can't fill. Everything else is zone of control. And they can't build partisans there, the Chinese. So we're good there. In the movement phase, you're allowed to shift some ships around. I moved the task force and a 3 fleet out to truck. And that's it. Everything else is going to get ready for the SR. So right now, let's attrition. Attritions, against the Nationalists is on the 21 table, and I rolled a 5, but that took 2 counters. And against the Communists, on the 11 table, I rolled a 3, so it took 1 counter. So nothing really going on there. I will go to unit construction. You'll see I buy, and I'll come back. I'll buy most of that in construction. The Japanese bought everything they had but the carrier. They're down to 117. Most everything went in here. They filled the gaps we were talking about here and here for 2 SRs. 3 SRs moved a guy to Kawajuan. 4 SRs here. 5 SRs, 6 SRs, 7 SRs, 8 SRs, 9 SRs, and that's it. That's 9 SRs for the Japanese, and they're done. MBRPs are going to go through. So this goes down to 115. Now the British will go ahead and we'll add the 5 BRPs to them. Because their turn's done, and Americans SR during the SR phase, which is the last thing you do. So now the Chinese, I'm not going to give them the 10 BRPs yet until their turn's done. U.S.-Japanese tension table, a second Flying Tiger is added to the Japanese force pool. So the Chinese were on the 21 table. They got a 3. They took off 3 Japanese counters. Now you be careful. You take the Japanese counters that are under these units. You don't take the ones that are protecting against the partisans, because then they can build partisans. So the Communists rolled and missed on the 1 to 10 table, but they got the 1 guy back. So 2 aircraft ready to go. Plenty of Chinese troops. When the Japanese start moving their attentions out to the Pacific, the Chinese will start trying to do more damage. But as of right now, that's where we stand. And the Asian front is complete. Nine plus 1 is a 10. A 10 is 80%. So 80% of 21 is 16.8. You round up, and that becomes 17. So 17 BRPs are eliminated from the British. So we go 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down to 69. Now, with the bombing, they lost 10, 17 more. They've lost a total of 27 BRPs divided by 3. That's 9 SRs they lose, but you can't go below 3. So the British are down to 3 BRPs next turn. See, and that's what hurts. Luckily, we got the Ethiopia thing going right now, because we wouldn't have the SRs maybe. We need to put, so anyways, that takes care of that. Now we have to eliminate the subs. Well, the 2 9 fleets here, remember, I just haven't put them back into 9 fleet factors, but they're 9s. They eliminate 2 subs, that's down to 5. Then the ASW eliminates 2 more, so that's down to 3. So there's 3 subs left after the warfare, and that's the end, and you lose the 2 ASW. 3 subs are left, so that's the end of SW warfare for the spring turn. Now remember, the tension table, we've already added it. Right here, we already put SW on it. So we are at 29 for the U.S. Axis tension table.